I have a birthday coming up, and I have not one pair of skirts, but two pairs of skirts. So why not get a third pair of used factory skirts? They just arrived today. I'm going to unbox them and see what fate has handed me. Let's go. Everybody seems to enjoy an unboxing. What I have here is another pair of used Fender skirts I bought through Facebook Marketplace. So why? How many skirts do you need? Well, one of the problems is the passenger side fender skirt, regardless of of where you find it, always seems to be kind of torn up. I guess because it's closest to the curb, closest to the garage wall, what have you. Secondly, in this case, this passenger side fender skirt is missing the lever, the retaining lever, although it does have the rubber. And of course, this fender skirt, while it does have the retaining hardware, it doesn't have the rubber, and I had a little bit of difficulty getting the rubber. I need to have one that's going to fit pretty well, one that's reasonably straight and has all the hardware and the rubber as I get a little closer to fitting up the car. So in any case, let's unbox these mystery fender skirts and see what the postman has brought us. Here we go. Let's get into it. Well, there's no shortage of packing tape with this one. Found this among all of our Christmas deliveries. Surprise, surprise. Crusty old hardware as opposed to new Amazon Christmas gifts. It's the best kind to get right here. All right, let's see. All right, here we go. What more tape? Okay, there we go. Let's see if that'll do. Not quite yet. I'm not careful on the angles. Okay. Well, left one looks pretty nice. All right, got rubber on it, and I got some packing goo in there. So the left one does have a split on the bottom, which I saw in the ad, and I already have two good left ones, so that's neither here nor there. These came from Massachusetts, so they do have a little bit of corrosion on the bottom, just surface rust, no problem. Let's set the left one over here. Now, drum roll please. Right one. Oh, bingo. Here we go. Look at that. Not even a wrinkle. A little teeny wrinkle right there. But in the scheme of things, that's nicer than the blue one I have. The little divot or scrape is minor. And we have the hardware, and we have the rubber. So all in all, I think this was a win. This might very well be the production skirt I end up using. You might wonder why I don't go with the aftermarket skirts, the reproduction ones. And while I haven't seen them up close and personal, what I have noticed online, these edges where they have to do a lot of stretching and shrinking, it's kind of waffle-like or accordion-like on both ends, whereas the factory one you just have minor evidence of the process, the forming process. The other aspect is quite often the rubber that they come with is this thick double tubed. I don't know what the right term for it is, but it's not the right shape molding. Yes, it is. It is molding, and it does take up some space. But the factory style molding, which I was able to get a small reproduction piece of over here, it fits like a glove, and it fits the car that much better. So anyway, looks like the yellow or tan or whatever the heck color this is, skirts for the win. Cheers. So just to recap, skirt number 1 does have the rubber, but it's missing the hardware, and it's kind of wrinkled and crinkled, and I mean, obviously the finish is garbage. It was hanging in my friend's body shop for a while. Skirt number 2, it does have the hardware, but it doesn't have the rubber, and it's got a fairly deep gouge here, and it has a less deep but long gouge up here. Skirt number 3, it does have a little more surface rust on it, but the only damage is right here, this teeny little gouge. It has the rubber and it has the hardware. So once again, I think all in all, this is a win. Cheers. While I don't necessarily need to use the driver's side fender skirt, let's try and fix this up, see if we can't make it a little nicer and weld it up to prevent it from splitting or deforming further. So let's get started. So we'll start by straightening it out with a pair of pliers, and then using hammer and dolly, maybe a slapper to try and get it a little closer to spec. So let's have a look. We've gotten it pretty close. Let's try and bring it the rest of the way. I think we might need another different shaped dolly to get in there, because it is a double lip, if you will. So let's see what we can do. I may be a little old to be playing with dollies, but I guess you can't have too many. So let's get a gander at this. Yeah, that one's a little too fat to fit in there nicely. Yeah. Yep, just not quite right. That's why it's good to have variety. Yeah, we'll have to do this in a couple of passes, I think. That handle's a little bit in the way. Okay. Let's see what we have over here. Where's vice grips when you need it? Having the tools on the other side of the garage doesn't work that well, but it could be worse. At least I have the tools, right? All right, here we go. Okay, hold on. Good enough. All right. Let's see what we can do here. That a little more square. Okay. Let's check it out. We happen to know that fender skirts are the same side to side on 53 and 54 Chevys. So let's I think this lever's going to be in the way. Yeah. I'll move you out of the way once again. Okay. Let's see here. All right. Well, it's good there. Let's see how likely it is that that's bowed out. See if I can tuck this in out of the way and maybe push it down a little further than normal. Okay, so I don't even know if that's bowed. Well, let's try it this way. Let's get these levers out of the way. There we go. Drop your dolly on the floor. Okay, good one. So I've laid the skirts out side by side across these boards, leaving a space for the hardware to hang down, the levers. And it seems like both edges are the same. So there's really no gap there. It looks like we've beaten that back into shape and got it fairly close together. There is a little bit of the edge of the lip missing. So we'll have to figure something out with that. Welding a little piece, but in any case, let's get that cleaned up and see if we can't at least tack it together so it doesn't lose its shape or split any further. So we have a small pair of vice grips holding the broken edge in place, and another pair holding the lever out of the way, and another pair propping up so we can work on it. First thing we're going to do is cut a slit here, a 1/32 inch slit, which is about the width of spacing you'd want for a MIG weld. And we'll see if we can't get a couple tacks in there before I remove the vice grips. And like a dummy, I didn't check what size wheel I had on the cutoff tool. I almost always have a 1/32 on here, but today I have a 1/16. So I have a wider slit than I'd hoped for, but just need to spend a little more time welding, I suppose. Here we go. We'll just go right on here. See how we make out that. This metal's a little bit thin. Okay, let's take a look at this. Okay, well after that mess, I think we have enough strength there that I can take away the vice grips. Although that is my source of ground. But we'll try and make do. Let's see what we got here. Well, first weld or two's on the vice grips itself, so that's good. I'm gonna have to see if I can't break that loose on the vise. Wish me luck. Now what I'm gonna do next is weld it from the inside. I was able to grind it a little bit with the edge of the wheel, the cutting wheel. And you'll see underneath it, I have my spoon. That's a copper spoon, so I can weld right up against that, given that we have such a big space to fill, and because the edges of the metal are so brittle. Also, I don't know if I can show it right now, but up here in the front, I saw a little bit of daylight coming through, so it looks like there's a pinhole arrest right here, which isn't a huge deal because I don't really think I need a left side fender skirt. But if I do, it might be a small enough bit of rust that it's not a big deal. So let's get done with the rest of the welding here. Gonna need a little more light, so let's come over here and get one of these guys. These guys are total lifesaver. There we go. Finally, let there be light. I guess we don't have a good enough ground. I have the ground on the flange here, not the flange, the bracket on the end. I did sand it, but I guess I didn't sand it enough. So let's pause for a moment to make sure we have good ground connection. I think we finally have a sufficient ground. So let's try this again. Nothing comes easy, they say. That looks pretty good. Let's move our spoon a little bit. Okay. Seems pretty good. Let's try on this far end. You bugger. There we go. Using the lever itself to help hold the skirt in place. Well, looks like we're going to have to do a little bit of grinding. But we'll take what we can get. Oops. We had to put a big fat bubble to create an edge there, but I think I can grind that into something. We'll see how the other side looks. Well, I've had better. Jim Carrey line. Just in case that didn't show up, that's the outside. So we'll take a grinder to that. We'll dress up the inside and see how it flies. What I use on my welding spoon and wish I had used on this particular small pair of vice grips is this anti-splatter nozzle shield. I also put it on the nozzle of my MIG torch. In any case, this prevents the weld from sticking. It's pretty runny. And of course, too little too late, like proverbial closing the barn door after the horses escaped. But in any case, we'll put a little bit on this tool as well. There we go. There, that's a little better. All right. So, should be good for next time. All right, let's see how the other side looks when we start grinding. Now the trick is to not go too far with the stone grinder. It can generate a lot of heat, will really scuff up and thin out the surrounding metal. The heat isn't as big a concern on this panel because most of the grinding is right around a folded edge, so that contains a warpage really. But more of a concern though is grinding the surrounding metal too thin or otherwise marking it up that you have to fill it. So I'm about ready to convert to a flap disc, maybe a 60 or 80 grit, and let's see if we can bring it down and make it a little bit nicer. So I'm going to hit this now with a fairly worn out 60 grit flap disc, see how we make out with that. Let me tap that a little more with the dolly just to bring it down. You can see it looks relatively smooth. We have a fairly nice edge there, obviously filled in there a little bit. Seems a little higher on this side than this side. I think if I bring the whole thing down just a little bit, it will level this out and make everything just a little bit nicer. In fact, if I mock it up on here, that does seem to be a little bit of a high spot. So yeah, I just need to tap that area down just a hair. So let's get on that more. All right. So MIG weld's going to be really hard, so I'm not expecting to planish this, just to flatten that area ever so slightly, and it looks like I may have accomplished that. Damn the lever. Lever be damned. Yeah, so we're fitting pretty nice there. That seems like far less of a high spot than it used to be. The inside, we really just have rough grinding. I'm not too worried about that. And let me see if I can't just dress this edge up a little bit, putting a little more meat on there. Of course, we'll need our spoon to do that. So let me get at it. So I wear the gloves when I'm welding, not so much from the heat or the UV rays, at least not on something this thin, but the splatter sticks to my ring, and taking the ring on and off and not losing it, that's a bigger problem than just wearing the gloves. Also, I tend to wear long sleeves anymore because I always seem to have my watch on, and I did have a big piece of slag get stuck behind my watch and burn into my wrist pretty badly. In fact, it welted the piece of slag under the back of the watch that I had to chip it off. So, lessons learned. Okay, so once again we have a little more weld than we need, but that's what the grinder's for. You know what they say, the grinder and paint make you the welder I ain't. Let's get this shut down, try and quiet the fan. So this time I'm going to use a disc called a Walther Flex Cut. if you've ever watched Fitzy's Fabrications, which I certainly watched the heck out of to try and figure out how to do all this, he recommended these highly. I don't know if he still uses them, but there's the name Walter. I said Walther, but it's really Walter Flex Cut A60-X. Anyway, these things cut as good or better than a grindstone. They last a long time, and if you're flat grinding like this, it's a nice nice opportunity for them. On the other, really can't edge grind with these. Now, on the other hand, by using this instead of that, I don't have to keep changing between the flat disc and the grindstone. So, actually, let me get this guy anchored with the vice grips, and I'll continue in a moment. These discs actually cut a little faster and a little cleaner than the grindstone, especially when you're grinding flat. Gives you a nice plane to work with. So let me get the flap disc on there and see if we can't bring this the rest of the way home. Can't see anything with my prescription glasses up close, so I need to use these safety glasses. And of course I use an N95 mask because the dust off of these things, especially the cutting wheels, will go through an ordinary dust mask. Particles are too small for the mask to catch. Anyway, let's see how we're looking here. That out of the way. So actually we might need the light. Okay, so the inside looks a little bit rough. We just have the rough grinding finish there. Can't really get a flap disc in there. I do have a small belt sander that if I use this on the car, I will dress that up a little more. Now the important side, well, there goes that. Important side is right here. And you can see that that's looking pretty good. Looks like I got a little bit of heat in it. I see a little bit of blue on there, so I'll give it a slightly lighter coat, run across the top there and see if I can't just smooth that out a little bit. In fact, the bluing might be from the last welding that I did on it. So let me freshen that up, and then I think we'll call it a day. Well, I think that's looking pretty good. We don't want to use a lot of filler on something like this. It's going to bounce around a lot, or on a lower edge, it's going to catch some gravel. But I think a primer will finish that out nicely. So there we go. Cheers. So the skirts are laid out, the new skirts that is, the sort of yellowy tan ones are laid out side by side since I've welded up the driver's side one. And there you can see the repair. So here they are, similar platform, similar footing, and the curve is pretty much the same. I mean, maybe there's a teeny bit of distortion here, but for the most part, these skirts are darn near identical. Now, let's take away the leg skirt, and let's get the legacy green skirt I have. So, a couple interesting differences here. First of all, this lip looks a little skinnier on the green skirt, especially back on this end. And secondly, when I line them up, they have a slightly different contour to them. Not significant, but slight, possibly significant. So let's take the green one away, and let's take the other tan one away, and let's use the blue one. Oops. Let's put it in the right direction first of all. So the blue one is very similar to the green one. It seems to have a skinnier lip, and it seems to not angle up as much, seem to have a little bit less curve in it, if you will. Now, if we take away the tan skirt, and let's compare green skirt to blue skirt. Once again, 53 and 54 Chevy Fender skirts are identical side to side. These two pretty much have the same lip width, same skinny lip, if you will, and they're a little bit closer to having the same shape. This green one's a little bit beat up, so I think this edge is curled up, but as far as the curve this way, the convex nature of the skirt, concave, of course, in this dimension, but when it's on the car, it'll be a little bit convex. These seem to have a little less convex aspect to them. Anyway, just an FYI, I don't know if it's different manufacturing plants or maybe aftermarket versus factory, but there you have it. Otherwise, they're pretty doggone similar. Back to the tan skirts again. While I was in the process of welding this up, I discovered some light coming through down this area. In fact, you can see the hole right there. I assumed it was a rust hole, but in fact, on this skirt, we have a pair of holes, and if I look closely, there's a pair of holes on here too. So while there's no purpose for those holes, I suspect maybe these are aftermarket skirts, and that's why the lip and the shape is slightly different, and maybe that's why it has these extra mounting holes, maybe for different aftermarket type of brackets that were screwed onto the car. In any case, they're a nice straight pair of skirts, and it's good that I have more to choose from as I get the car a little closer to finished.